On today's show, U.S. Army to buy 120,000 custom AR headsets from Microsoft in a deal that costs $22 billion. Plus, we introduce our new editor, writer, reporter, whatever you call yourself, Ben Wodecki, in a new segment called What's the News with Wodecki? Welcome to the AI Business Podcast, episode 24. And today I'm vastly outnumbered by the people across the pond. Starting as always is our global editor of AI Business, the man who just made his coffee at 6 p.m. actually, Max Molex.
Hello there. I don't believe there's a right time for coffee. I mean, the time for coffee is all the time, so that's how I live my life.
Okay, you don't have to turn this into a coffee commercial. Yeah. So plowing ahead. A man who just bought 5 butterflies for $5. For $5.
20 butterflies for $5.
Doesn't make it any better. He is the deputy editor of DCD, Sebastian Moss.
Look at these gorgeous wings. Look how beautiful this butterfly is. Just look at that. Look at that. Hello, everybody.
What do you plan to do with those?
That's between me and the butterflies.
And of course, you heard his voice. You might have read it. You might have read his articles. He's been responsible for 90% of the output on AI business. Well, every time Max take a nap, he woke up with 10 stories from Ben Wodecki. He's our new. What is your proper title, Ben?
Well, you called me editor earlier. I'd love that, but alas, I'm just a reporter. I'm just a voice, and I have Dr. Pepper's soda.
So Ben, give us a line of, what we should know about you but don't know about you.
Yeah, so I come from an IP background, so...
Okay, great. That's all we need.
Yeah, perfect. That's absolutely fine.
I said one line.
Intellectual
No.
You ruined it. Wait,
all our audience just fell asleep.
Yeah, when you say IP, my mind goes to another place. But no, something about you personally.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Japanese card games, Five Schwartz, Yu-Gi-Oh! 90% of my paycheck goes there when it probably shouldn't.
Have you been to Japan yet?
Never. It's on my list.
We'll send you there. Don't you worry.
That's what you told me when I worked for you, Max. And then you went.
The reason we invited Ben on this episode is because he ran a bunch of stories and it's only his second week he's on fire. So we thought it would be good for him to kind of pitch us those stories and for us to be the barrier, the mediator between the audience and the news to go through them and say, oh, that's newsworthy or that's not newsworthy. So that's in a segment of What's the News with Wodecki coming up later. But first, we do have a marquee topic for all of us, and that's invite our military-industrial complex expert and hater of all establishment, Sebastian Moss, the head of the Moss family, the elder of the Moss family, to
the alpha.
The Omega,
Sigma,
to Professor Reverend.
Give us the news story.
We've all known about AR and followed AR for a long time. We've known about HoloLens, but it's always been something that's around the corner. Maybe it'd be a gimmick. Maybe it just needs a killer feature. Now it has a real killer feature: killing. It's wonderful, right? So Microsoft already they had a partnership with the US military, a meager $480 million to test out whether this HoloLens AR system would be good for soldiers. Give it 28 months, go by, and turns out, yes, they love it. They want 120,000 of them for up to $22 billion. And that's an insane figure. And before you go, oh, that's just they went onto Microsoft.com and typed in HoloLens 2 and bought 22 billion of them, or 120,000 of them. 120,000 headsets, HoloLens 2 headsets with Dynamics and Amazon's Azure support is about 600 million. So we're talking significantly more advanced systems here with expensive infrared, with tracking of hostiles and civilians and calling the civilians hostiles, and all these cool features that we don't know about. Azure support on top, so you're going to have AI is going to work on top of the AR system. Again, we don't really know how. We don't know how much onboard processing will happen, how much will be offloaded to edge, how much will be offloaded to the cloud. We know there is going to be some offloading. That's the big question, because if I'm China or whoever, I'm going to be paying attention to that connection between that headset and the rest of the world, because if I can disrupt that, then I've disrupted the soldier. If I can intercept it, then I can see what the soldier sees. And if I can infect it, then I can screw with the soldier.
The military is an early adopter. We can expect for many of these technologies to filter back into civilian devices years down the line. We have to note that this is a 10-year contract, so like this is not gonna happen overnight, and it's just manufacturing, like those things is gonna take some time.
So the military has experimented with augmented reality before. Of course, they were some of the earliest proponents of VR technology, especially for training. One of the things they have used it for is maintenance, because military has tons of different weapons and vehicles, and they constantly change. And you get these often, school kids or people that don't want to pay for university because it's not free in America, or they have, trying to get out of convictions. So they go in the military. They might not have a huge engineering background. Then you tell them fix this Humvee. It's kind of insane. So they've tried. There's a thing called the ARMS initiative, Augmented Reality Remote Maintenance Support Service. Which they tried to use kind of off-the-shelf AR. Then Lockheed Martin, they partnered with the AI company called Ngrain, and they just took an Epson Mavero BT200 glasses, which are like really awful $700 AR systems. I don't think that they'll probably use these HoloLens for that, but this is not what HoloLens is for. People shouldn't be tricked into thinking this is just for maintenance. The original document said this is to improve lethality, right? That's what this is for. Right, so it's the Xbox guys. They're trying to get a new achievement, which is death count. And again, we shouldn't underestimate how deeply enmeshed Microsoft is with the U.S. military. They're not. When you think of military contractors, you don't think of Microsoft. But again, the robots are controlled with Xbox controllers. Microsoft Office is sold through General Dynamics, so most of the military back office runs on it. And most of the military's front cloud is meant to run on Microsoft right now under Jedi, which is a mere $10 billion, to paltry $10 billion in comparison to just run all of the army. But that's currently held up in court by Amazon, because Amazon said that President Trump blocked that because he hates Jeff Bezos, because Jeff Bezos and the Washington Post are mean to him, which is entirely plausible. And that's the state of affairs of your nation. But so
wait, who's?
Yeah, it's out down, but that's it. We're flying a UK flag right now.
Right.
So.
Can we not fly that flag either?
We're all about flags.
Yeah. So as of 2019, most of the US military was meant to be running on Microsoft Azure.
Because like the last time, I think it was the IVAS contract. A lot of Microsoft employees were up in arms about it. How have you seen kind of reaction to this? Is that something that, are they just as terrified now?
I think if you work at Microsoft and are against military contracts, you had plenty of years now to be upset and leave or tell your boss. Microsoft has been very clear. They will work with the military. They're going to work with it more. At most, you can request to not be on those specific projects.
Guilt tripping Microsoft.
Well, it's not guilt tripping, but it's your responsibility as an employee to know what your company is doing and whether you're okay with it. It's your choice. Let's talk about the money a little bit, because it's part of a very massive deal, and the HoloLens itself only costs about $600 million, right? So that's even though that's the headline, but it's not just the lenses. It's like, what's the rest of the money going, and what does that mean for going forward? And let's say this is a 10-year deal. Okay, so 9 years from now, what do we expect to see?
Well, I mean, it's this. Half of it's going to be the sensors.
Early renders feature a gazillion lenses which don't really belong on a kind of AR device. You don't know. Maybe it will map out the battlefield. Maybe it's going to provide some kind of analytics services. Maybe every person wearing the bloody helmet will become a sort of a machine, a sensor. And whoever's in command will be able to get video feeds. 3D images, anything.
Well, I mean, this is, again, the advantage of being Microsoft over, say, Lockheed Martin or Magic Leap or any of those, is you can offer that whole service. So you can create the sense, the VR headset or the AI headset in this case, but you can also control the infrastructure. You can run the edge devices, you can do the cloud, you do all that computing, you have the software guys. So there's a whole bunch of different initiatives to create, like Max was saying, these battle space management systems. Palantir, for example, Max Do a Shot, is aggressively working on trying to win those contracts. But again, even if you create this system that says there's a weather front coming from this direction, there's troops over there, there's civilians over here, getting that information to soldiers has been difficult. You don't want them like looking down at their phone or their ruggedized tablet while someone's shooting at them and then like hitting F5 to refresh it. If you can have this overlay in a way that doesn't disrupt their line of sight, doesn't confuse them, doesn't distract them, which is a huge question mark, then that can massively improve how good they are at shooting people.
And just over under, do you think this is here to stay? Like, you know, considering all the risk that Max just brought up and you brought up, like, I don't know. I feel like it's probably going to be integrated somewhat, but I think it's very likely that 5 years from now we don't see it apply in a very significant way. Microsoft somehow made a bunch of money, and the military was like, all right, nice try, we did that.
Yeah, I think security, what would stop them is if something major happened with security. But the US government has a very lax attitude to security, and usually it takes a huge disaster for them to change this. There's lots of issues with the military security and how easy it is to interrupt and damage their systems and their weapons.
But I think like this is the start, you know, like, because I think it wasn't a question of whether sort of like, you know, like the militaries are gonna do it. It was when, and it's just like right now the signal has been given. I think everybody else is just gonna jump at the chance, and we're gonna see the announcements time after time. It's gonna become like a and to your question, Tian, I think that in 5 years, yes, we will see these things used regularly, but most importantly, they will be used for recruitment. They will be used to project the sort of like the vision of American army as this tech forward force, you know, like where these, you know, like these super soldiers, these half robots are coming, you know, just like, yeah.
There's some oil over there. Why don't you go and seize that? It's kind of like the exosuit hype from like a few years back where everyone's like, this is the next best thing. We need this. And then it just kind of, it's fizzling now.
That's exactly my point. What we've seen with exoskeletons and aim assist systems right now is they're at the stage of that initial $480 million Microsoft contract. So there's a bunch of these contracts. They're all on the sub-$1 billion level, and it's the army saying, let's try this out. Eventually it will be a thing. You know, it'd be great if we could carry more. Or like aim assist is the one that I'm keeping an eye on, which really tries to use machine learning to work out where you're actually trying to aim, and gets rid of some of the jitter that a human has so you can be more effective at shooting.
And the other question, I guess, coming from an end user perspective is that, well, how much longer are we going to see, you know, as GPS and all those military technology eventually become at the ends of consumer? How long does it take for us everybody in New York City to have one of those things, some kind of renditions of those on their lens, on their glasses, and walk around and scrolling through media and buy things? Potentially, I feel like all those things, all those wonderful technology will turn into a way for you to consume and exposed to ads. So I feel like that's also a possibility we should keep an eye out.
I mean, this has sped up the technology side, because now Microsoft can justify to itself and to investors, let's triple the size of this team, because there are tens of billions to be made guaranteed from the military. And you know, 120,000 headsets is not the entirety of the US military. There's still a lot more headsets it could sell if it wanted. But the question, and that comes back to Google Glass, is the social side of things. And I think we're still a little further off. Maybe, like Max said, if we see this propaganda of US soldiers running around with like cool AR headsets and looking like super soldiers, that might make it, you know, as we watch the latest Michael Bay film, we're like, oh, I want that. So this might speed that up as well, but we've still got a way to go before someone's walking on the street and I'm not going to shout at them.
And speaking of films, they had the most recent Ignite like 2 weeks ago with the announcement of Microsoft Mesh, the collaborative AR VR project, with James Cameron coming out in support of it. Like, they're already integrating it into, they're already going, hey, here we are, we're here, we're ready.
Yeah. Here's this cool new tech, and right now, again, it's still the Microsoft has been fairly successful with positioning as a tool for professionals. You know, like because HoloLens wasn't a consumer product; it was there for industrial applications. Granted, the applications kind of never emerged until now, like not at scale. But yeah, that was the thing. It's just like it's gonna help you like work the machines. It's gonna help you at work essentially.
When I board the public transit, I'll see an ad And I'm like, oh, that looks really good. And all of a sudden, there's a U.S. military ad. I'm like, oh, yeah, join us. I'm like, and this feels like a dystopian future. I want you kind of ad thing.
Yeah.
And it's somehow still happening, but in a more, right. But it's happening in a more subtle way. And I feel too, I don't know if do you guys have similar? Join MI5?
No, obviously it's going that way now, but Britain has always been a country that was more embarrassed about patriotism than embraced it. It's changing now.
Not for Piers Morgan.
I know, not, and that's what I'm saying. It's changing now.
We've been teasing this long enough, and now this is officially the first segment of our one-part series. Watching the news with Wodecki. We'll trademark it, yeah, and then so Ben, without further ado, just hit us with the first story. Allow us to discuss whether this is worthy, and at the end, Max is gonna make the final decision because as of now, he's still the global editor of AI business, whatever the global means. And he will say, well, as of now means as of now, to date.
Right.
And then he's going to say whether he buy or sell the story, however the conversation goes. And the timer has begun.
Tim Cook's lengthy interview with the New York Times. Taking from that, they are interested in moving into autonomous cars. So Mr. Cook, not Mr. Apple, as Trump accidentally called him, admitted his admiration for Tesla and hinted that Apple could be opting to make similar moves. It is important to note that Apple does have Project Titan devoted entirely to working with electronic autonomous vehicles, although nothing has happened since its inception several years ago. The news comes after Nissan and Hyundai have denied reports of potential alliances with Apple on similar cars.
The love of Tesla is interesting because Elon Musk claims that in 2017 he tried to sell Tesla to Apple and couldn't even get a meeting. Yeah, couldn't even get a meeting with Tim Cook. Titan, like you said, it's gone through a lot of false starts. People have left it, people have joined it. They've burned through a lot of money, but they're Apple, so who cares? They have a track where they've been driving a car around and testing, but that's, it's so far behind all the other autonomous companies that have actual data because they can go on the road. So I would be more curious if and when they buy a self-driving car company and get hold of all that data.
Project Titan's kind of a mess. If you go on internet, there's photos of the Apple car, what it might look like, and it's nothing. But the truth is, we don't know. And as the U.S. as the world, I guess, heads toward a greener future, I want more competition. So in that sense, I'm interested.
You know that with Apple, when Walmart are ahead of you in terms of developing something, you're screwed. Walmart are miles ahead of them. And the interesting thing from my point of view is, I don't want an autonomous car that I have to charge with Lightning when everyone else is on something else. Will you have to get insurance and Apple Care for your Apple car?
So I don't like this story because it's Apple doing the what it does best is stoking speculation. This is not a proper product announcement. This is not even a proper interview. There's no content. There's no information here. This is pure marketing. It's done very, very well. But all it's gonna do is supply analysts with jobs for years to come, and everybody can now write an opinion about what they think Apple car will be, even though there's we have no understanding of how it actually look like. Whether that's going to be a hardware product or it's going to be just pure a software platform, whether they're going to partner with somebody or not. So for that reason, right. I think kudos to Apple for kind of keeping the debate alive, but this gives us nothing. So I will say sell this. All
right, that's great. We just hit about the 5-minute mark on that one and continue plowing ahead.
So we're going to stick on the line of thinking related for autonomous cars because someone very strange threw their hat into the ring this week. And that's Vietnam. I'm going to butcher this pronunciation. I'm going to say Phenica, Phenika group, unveiled its first level 4 prototype autonomous vehicle. It can automatically change lanes, detect signs and pedestrians, and adjust maximum speeds depending on route. Obviously, it needs further safety tests before any official release, but the company, Phenica Group, said that they are looking to expand the influence of Vietnamese brands and technologies. I found this interesting because when you think of tech companies and places and countries, seldom do I and others think of Vietnam. And I think this is absolutely amazing because, as Tien will point out, their infrastructure and their roads are about as good as my cooking. So make of that what you will.
I don't know you that well, so I don't know what to make of that yet. I've never been invited to your house. But I will say this, having been to Vietnam a year and a half ago, there are street signs. So there are some of those things the camera can be reading, but nobody follow the rules. And you want to cross the street, you look straight on where you want to go because the motorcycle are coming you from all directions. And I will hold the camera. I think I have a video somewhere. I just hold the camera and then the car's just careful. If you stop, they'll run into you. But if you just gleefully ignore, you might as well close your eyes. You're in one of those movies where the everybody is stunts and you're just like you're crossing the street and you just don't care. Nobody even drive. I don't think I see a car actually. And I was only in Hanoi, so it's like a small. I'm sure they're gonna test in Ho Chi Minh City first, former Saigon. But I feel like I'm not excited about this. I want to see what they would do with it, but until they fix the road, until they change the street sign, I will not take it seriously. I love Vietnam, so somebody else go.
But self-driving cars is just insane to try and do it in places where the roads are so chaotic, and it's insane for a Waymo level car company to try and go for it. I love the idea of a little homegrown, little Rocky fighter going up against the big baddie, but just a little too difficult to imagine.
There's two important bits. One, I think it's sort of like it's essentially a bus, so it's clearly intended as a small kind of public transport form thing, which means like the frequent start stops and general kind of very slow progression through the traffic might be okay. But the second one is if this wasn't an artifact of translation, then I think the story says they did it in 6 months. So I don't think they developed it from the ground up. They essentially assembled it from over-the-counter parts. And this is interesting because, yes, this just shows, like the industry as a whole has advanced so much that even a company that doesn't have, extensive manufacturing facilities, infrastructure, a country generally in a kind of less wealthy part of the world can spin this up and can do this, even as a research project.
I will also say, the US-China trade war started under Trump, but happily chugging away under Biden. Vietnam was one of the biggest beneficiaries of, we need to move manufacturing out of China, but we still want it somewhere where human labor is dangerously cheap. And that includes tech.
It's like Japan during the Korean War, where the US is involved with conflict with China and Korea, and suddenly they start building factories in Japan, and lo and behold, they become one of the biggest economy in the world. And we're like, how did that happen? We're like, well, because of the Korean War, people don't think about it. US just suddenly throwing a bunch of money because they need those sweet military money, so somebody has to take those orders.
Well, and equally Korea afterwards. Korea's now one of the tech capitals. Vietnam's got a long way to go, and some of its roads may not be okay because of America.
Yeah, I think we're buying it for the global impact and for something from a little bit further afield, and it's just like good luck to the guys, and if they do create a production vehicle from this project, then let us know, please.
Yeah, we'd love to go to Vietnam.
I know a good coffee shop in Hanoi.
So we'll head on to I Hear Dead People. So the headline hit the news that Nirvana have released a new track. However, AI was supposedly behind it. So Magenta, an open source Python library powered by TensorFlow, was used to effectively generate new works from musicians who've passed away from at the age of 27. So the likes of Kurt Cobain, Jimi Hendrix, and Amy Winehouse all passed at 27, and the idea of this was to raise awareness of mental health issues in the music industry. All of those artists and others passed away at 27, and the need to kind of raise that is there. I picked up on this because it's interesting. The music actually sounds good.
As good as your cooking, or what's
much
good
better.
you're talking about?
Much
better.
better.
Okay.
a good musician over the course of their lifetime changes. They change from what they've learned. They change from listening to other music. They change from. You're not going to get that by feeding in everything they did before 27.
Being an AI publication, we're honestly interested in how much the work AI did, and the answer is not that much. So basically, yeah, whenever we stumble upon one of these AI-based creations, we often find out that most of the work was actually done by human curators. That somebody had to take the output of algorithms and compose them into something that is actually pleasant to humans. So very much the case in this on this occasion. So they use Magenta to first learn from isolated kind of MIDI files of individual instruments, individual themes, individual melodies, so they fed it ingredients for songs. It then created its own ingredients based on those, and then a sound engineer stitched those ingredients together into sort of like fully featured works of music, and then tribute bands sang the actual words. So this is the chain of custody of this supposedly AI-generated music, and as you can see, while it features an element of AI, most of the actual work was probably done by humans.
And I mean, it's equally with the faces in movies, for example, the Grand Moff Tarkin. That was just human animators.
I think right now it's fine. It's kind of a joke. Everybody's like, oh, that looks nothing like Grand Moff Tarkin. And why is Grand Moff Tarkin always in very dark? As you see anyone, they just like always somehow they're in a room with no lights. The light is only shedding them like a third of the face, like a Rembrandt painting, and it's kind of ridiculous. And I just think, fine, if you want to do that, stop now. Don't go any further. I don't want to see. Just recast the person. Recast Princess Leia. Recast somebody. There's a lot of actors who are ready to work, and just get one of those actors.
Create the
get
new
them
James
off the set.
Dean. Don't.
Yeah. Pay Shia LaBeouf a little better so he can be
please
interesting. Whatever.
Please.
Or not.
Do not pay more to Shia LaBeouf.
Okay. Hit us with the final dose of the Wodecki story.
Final story. Gotta chase those trends, so we're talking NFTs. So just this afternoon, Lena Morris, probably butchering that, you probably know her as the overly attached girlfriend. She sold her famous meme for 200 Ethereum, or $420,000 at the time of speaking. So of late, there's been an absolute craze of NFT sales. McDonald's said they're going to look at making an NFT Big Mac. You've got famous tweets being sold, like Twitter's Jack Dorsey's first tweet, and people like The Weeknd and Deadmau5 are selling NFT songs and artworks.
Boy George.
So
for some reason, I'm getting advertised by Boy George. It's horrible.
So that begs the question, okay, is this hype, and where can AI come in?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I just we're not qualified to give investment advice, but do not invest your money in NFTs because it's dumb.
But stupidity can make you money, so you could probably make some money off of it, but please don't.
Take your cash and walk away.
If we
don't come back.
just to reference, if we ever start selling NFTs, please buy them.
Yeah, this podcast. Can we put it up?
We take Dogecoin, Ethereum.
NFTs are big right now. Clubhouse is big right now. Audio NFTs. This podcast. Let's make it a thing.
Okay.
Send us money, and we will send you a version of this podcast, and you can claim it as the only one. If you're a listener who doesn't know what an NFT is, quick.
Non-fungible token. A non-fungible token is a representation of a real-world item on the blockchain, but all it is essentially is a unique piece of code that you cannot forge. It is not the item itself. That item is a JPEG. NFT is not the JPEG. It's just a record on the blockchain. Anybody can have a JPEG, and many do.
So that meme lady, that meme doesn't go away. That image is still around. Anyone can post it. The guy who buys the NFT doesn't get any proceeds from that. He or she just has a digital document that says you have the token of this thing that everyone already has.
When you're playing with technology and you're covering technology, a useful exercise is how would you explain it to the people from last century, or from the beginning of century, or Middle Ages. We do that all the time. But, the thing with NFTs is it's impossible to explain to somebody from 2 years ago. They would look at you like you're crazy. That's the problem with NFTs. If you weren't...
Well, forget about people 2 years ago. Just try it on your mom, and that wouldn't work. She'll have a hard time understanding it.
I think it is the next GameStop. Things will change. Something else will come along, and we'll all forget about saying the word fungible in sentences for at least a few more months. I think there's potential there for certain aspects. You could purchase maps on a video game or something obscure, but wider implications of it, it's like AR uses. There's not that many, but there's some, and they're neat in that respective sphere.
Right, so it can be something, nothing, or everything.
But probably nothing.
So I hope you enjoyed that, our debut segment of What's Up with the News with the Wodecki. See, I changed that already. So we're going to keep changing it as Ben continues to churn out those nice news stories. So let's tell the people where they can find us if they want to know where the stories are coming from. You can always find me. See, I'm going first. At Tian Fu, mostly on LinkedIn, and sometimes, very rarely, on Twitter. And more often than I want to admit, I'm on Instagram also if you want to see some nice
here it comes.
foodie photos.
Tian's Instagram is back.
You can find me. I just got a 10th century Viking crucifix, so I might post pictures of that on Twitter. You can find me at Seb Moss.
Yes, well, you can find me at max@business.com. That's if you want to send me an email, and generally on Twitter, where I promise to turn my largely kinda in the middle of the road between personal and business account into a straight up business account. I'm gonna tweet about the news. Yes, no, this is happening.
It's not possible for you.
Finally, Ben, where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Ben Wodecki, Wodecki. I'm on LinkedIn, but I'm mostly on Twitter tweeting about my news content, Eurovision, Japanese card games, and generally things that annoy me.
And people can also find you at a local supermarket, putting through a pound to get a Dr. Pepper.
Pound?
Pound.
How much does it cost?
That's inflation in America for you. Goodness me, 65p.